Well, actually, I was a 9-year-old during that time, so I actually experienced it firsthand. I recall very vividly feeling as though I was in a movie, looking out my window and viewing tanks coming down the streets. Well, prior to viewing, just hearing the rumbling sound, it's really kind of earth-shaking sound of those treads going down the street, and thinking I was in a movie scene, because it's very surreal when you have that level of military occupation taking place in neighborhoods. Numerous scholars throughout the country who've looked at this subject has defined it as a rebellion, not a riot. A riot is just taking a look at the definition, kind of connotes a criminal activity, something that's very scattered, that's not rooted. A rebellion is a response to authority. So during the latter part of the 1960s, there were 398 rebellions in the United States in 294 cities. The root cause of those rebellions was typically a response to police violence or rumor thereof. So in the place where the rebellion took place at Claremont and 12th Street, that was an area of very high density. There were high unemployment. So there are certain conditions that really gave for response, kind of a powder keg develops over time when conditions are not ripe for a kind of a more just living. I think it's important for all our organizations collaboratively, and the right, fortunately, is working with Detroit Historical Society, with the DIA, Detroit Free Press, the Ruther, MOT, Detroit Public Schools, a plethora of partners, so that collectively we could tell a fuller story, a more accurate story, so that we do not fall within areas that would allow for other rebellions to occur, as has been the case in Ferguson. Some of our scholars are looking at the '67 period, because it's very unique in the sense that it was interracial. I mean, there were whites who were snipers, there were whites who were in jail, whites who were killed, right, 10. So it's very much a non-racial focused. There were 7,000 people incarcerated during that period. And one of the final speeches that Dr. King made in 1967 was looking at some of the economic issues in terms of the United States and how so much funding was being allocated to the military. If you look at the military budget versus the education budget. So there's still enough wealth for people to have a higher lift and more equitable opportunities, but it's very segregated and selected group, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the issues. One of the major issues that's going to occur is access to free and clean water. And we see this happening all over, not just in Flint, but throughout, in terms of how to protect and give equitable access to free water, better education, career opportunities. So these challenges still exist. I look at the global picture and see that this is all one unified world, right? I mean, everything is cohesive as far as the environment we live in terms of environmental social justice, the people we work with. The bottom line is, one of our struggles as African Americans is that when we were forcefully kidnapped and brought to the United States and worked for 400 years of free labor or thereabout, we were relegated to cattle or to property and not looked at as human beings. So our fight has really been about a human rights struggle. And then after the enslavement, there was obviously this Jim Crow periods of economic exploitation with the lack of work that continues. So diversity of cultures, I find it to be very rich to know what's going on in India, China, so it's just one world that we live in.